So I'm Marc Dubresson. I look after mobile products at Alfresco. And with us, we have Claire working with Eurostar, Victor and Maria working with Estrella, and I'll let them introduce themselves in more details. So I'm not going to, obviously the time is really for you, so I'm not going to go and do a huge presentation, but there is a fact. It's a slower moving movement that what I would like. Mobile is going into the enterprise very slowly, but eventually we're going to get there. So Gartner has a prediction here that by 2016, 60% of devices will be mobile, et cetera, et cetera. I think we've all seen those devices at home. We're seeing them in the enterprise more and more, and there are cases, and we're going to see two of these cases where they make a lot more sense when people are in the field, and it's the first use case for mobile, and that's where it becomes more interesting. What's interesting about mobile and why mobile should be interesting to a lot of our customers and partners now is of thinking about mobile now and doing certain things. So we hope that Estrella and Eurostar become more competitive because they're able to circulate information more quickly and act upon some of the processes more quickly as well, rather than waiting to get back in the office or synchronize in some way. At Alfresco, we're trying to support that effort. We don't build a solution for all of our customers. We have showcase solutions in the store, but we think that what will really be successful for mobile is if we provide open source solutions that can be modified, if we provide an SDK that can be used by our partners and customers when they have the resources to build their own solutions. So what we try is to build a toolbox of mobile tools to do this. And what we're going to look at now with Claire from Eurostar is a solution that was built on an open source version of our app. And what we'll look after that with Victor and Maria with Estrella is a solution that was built before we even started thinking about mobile, using WebScript and a more customized way of doing it. So there is no right or wrong way of doing it, but we're just trying to make sure that we're making the technology accessible. So Claire will present us now some great usage of mobile in enterprise, and I'll just let you go forward, and the clicker is right here.
So, good afternoon. I'm Claire Smith. I work for Eurostar International as a business relationship manager. So I'm just going to talk to you about how we're using Alfresco to enable mobile collaboration. But before we start, I'm just going to play you a little introduction movie to introduce Eurostar. So that's who we are. So I'm going to start today with just giving you a little bit of background on how we're using Alfresco at the moment and how it's touching all different parts of the business. And then I'll concentrate on the mobile project that we're doing at the moment. It's a proof of concept we've got in place for our train crew. So it's a project that we're really excited about and is really interesting for us, I think. Obviously, it hasn't been without challenges. We've come across, even though we're still in proof of concept, we've had a number of challenges along the way. And finally, I'm going to wrap up with some user feedback, because at the end of the day, that's the important thing, is what the users think of it. So, we've been using Alfresco for about 3 years now, and throughout that time, Zazie has been our partner along the way. It started because we had 60,000 engineering drawings that we needed to store and share with our depots in France and Belgium. And that's one of the first projects that we did. It was quite a complex one. There's an awful lot of additional metadata that needed to go around the drawings. Since then, we've expanded it into our company docs project, which is all of our internal policy documents. They needed strict version control and to be fully auditable, because we're a regulated industry. We get audited all the time. We have our IT forms project, which is a way of managing our IT requests for equipment from users in the business. And finally, our board papers are all stored on Alfresco in a secure site to try and make our own board as paperless as possible. So the mobile project is the one that I'm going to concentrate on for today. This is a proof of concept that we started a few months ago now, taking the requirements from the users for it. What we have is, for our train crew, on each train we have a driver, and we have 2 train managers. So the train managers are there to ensure the safety of the passengers and the service in general. The train manager 2, TM2 as we call them, is also a qualified driver, so is effectively the co-pilot, and in the event of a problem can take over the driving of the train to safety as well. And then we have traction inspectors who, amongst part of their role, is to provide support to the onboard crew. They provide support to the crew, and they provide an audit function as well. So this user group is around 300 people. And we have a regulatory requirement that they have to carry something called rule books. These are all the safety documents, the policy documents that must be with the crew at all times on the trains. Now, we currently have a manual process for managing this because they're all paper documents. So every time there's a new rule book or an update to the rule book, it's published as a paper version. The crew have to come back to St Pancras Station. They have to pick up their new version. They have to sign a piece of paper to say that they've received it. They have to go away and read the document and understand it, and then they have to come back into St Pancras Station and sign the document again to say that they now understand it and they're good to go with it. And the traction inspectors are the people who have to audit this process to make sure that everybody has the correct version at any point in time. So as you can see, that's a process which is ready for improvement, really. So for this proof of concept, we concentrated on specific areas. Now, some of the crew were complaining of back problems carrying these documents around. A train driver has to carry 15 books. A train manager has to carry 8 books. And that's a lot of documentation that they're carrying around. They weigh several kilos. We also spend around £20,000 a year in printing costs of all the updates for these documents. Now, as I said, it's a regulatory requirement, so the version control had to be fully auditable. And the process itself, it was time-consuming, it's manual, and there's room for improvement there. So these are the things that we wanted to address in the proof of concept. So the solution that we came up with, we're already using Alfresco across the business, so that made sense to reuse it. We decided to use the iPad. About 3 years ago, we chose iPhone as the phone of choice across the enterprise, so our onboard crew have been using the iPhone for a few years now. So the iPad was a natural progression for them to use. It's not a trivial point because by their very nature, these people are out and about, they're travelling on the trains all the time. They're not sat at an office using a PC. So anything we could do to help them with the technology transition to make it easier for them is worth doing. And then we partnered with Zazie, as we usually do, to develop the app to support what we wanted. So what we've got at the end of it is our safety documents app. We've added a number of usability features. There's an enhanced search function for the downloaded documents and a go-to page function. What this does is it allows the users to cross-reference the rules, because the rules don't work in isolation, they all relate back to each other. So it makes them easier to find specific rules. And we've got a swipe page function, which just makes it easier for them to use. I think that's when the train managers are actually walking up and down the train, it's actually easier for them just to swipe than to actually hit buttons accurately. And of course, we've got a French language option, which is vital for everything that we do. Then one of the key business features that we've got are the alerts and acknowledgements functions, and this is what gives us the audit function to say that the document has been downloaded, it's been received by the person, and that they understand it. So this is a feature, I've got a demo coming next, and this is the feature that I'll show you. So this is the ground system. We log in as normal and go to our site. And what we're going to do is we go to the document library and we're just going to upload a standard Word document. And what we do is we set an acknowledgeable aspect for the document. So here we are uploading it. So we click on the document. And we go to Manage Aspects, and we set the acknowledgeable. What this does, it marks it as being an important document that needs to be pushed out to the app. So here, in the metadata, we select the users that it's relevant to. We can select individual users or groups of users. So we'll just add a few here. And then we click on a notification button, and there we go. That's our document is now set up. And here in the acknowledgements field, we can see which users are at which state. So back on the app, we have a notification saying that we've got a document pending. And we have alerts coming in that say we can't ignore, do we want to download it? And if we click cancel, it just keeps coming back saying you've got a new document. So we've got the little red number which says there's a document waiting. So if we click on the downloads, we see we've got one document there waiting. And we go back out of the app, it's still there. So this time we really download it. And it will ask us to create some folders to put it into. So we create 2 folders. These are for the downloaded documents to go into. The user can choose the folder structure for the downloaded documents. So and here we've got a box to say that it's been downloaded. So if I now go on to the document section, this is the link to actual Alfresco itself. We'll see that it's entirely consistent, and that for that document it has the same buttons ticked. So at this stage, that one is just downloaded. So there you go, the two, whether it's downloaded onto the app or actually accessing it through Alfresco, they're entirely consistent. So if we tick that we've also received it, still the same on both sides, and now the red number has gone from the actual app itself. So back on the Office-based system, we can see here now that from user Mary B, she's got 2 green dots to say that she's downloaded it and she's received it. So back on the app, we check that we've now understood it as well. And we refresh the page here, and that user is now green dots all the way along, and this is how the audit trail is working for us. So the next thing to show is the support button. So if we open our document again, this allows the users to request support on a document. So by doing this, it just opens up an email. They enter either a group name or an individual that they want to request support from. Typically, it would go to a traction inspector. It automatically fills in the name of the document that they're referring to. So we just type our message. I think this message is asking what is the speed of the trains in the new tunnel, the new trains in the tunnel. So we type our email. Sign it from Mary Brown. And we click on send. And that's how the users can now get support for any of the documentation as well, straight from the iPad. So the next thing to show is uploading a new version. So this is very standard. We just upload a new version as normal. But you see now everything is set back to red because nobody has received this new version yet. So back on the iPad, we've got another notification saying that we've got an update. So we go through the same process again. We've got the red number to say that there's an update. So we download it. It asks us, it says, there's already a downloaded file with the same name. Do you want to overwrite it? So we do. And then we go through the same process again of saying, we've received it, we've understood it. So back on here, if we refresh the page again, we see Mary B is now green all the way across with the new version. And this is the part that satisfies the audit requirement for us. So that at any point in time, we can see which users have received the new documents and which ones have received it and understood it. So we're still in the proof of concept phase. We're hoping to go live with it maybe early on in the new year. But there have been a number of challenges along the way. Regulatory compliance is a big thing for us. We operate in 3 countries at the moment. Hopefully next year it will be 4, which means that we've got to meet the regulations across all of those countries. One of them was about the device itself, the choice of device. It had to be of a certain size, it had to be in colour. I've heard a rumour that SNCF are now using iPads, so we hope that that challenge is now gone. We also have what we call the coffee test. Is the new solution any worse than the existing solution if you spill a cup of coffee over your rule books? Well, obviously, replacing an iPad is more expensive, but in terms operationally, we think the way that we're going to mitigate this is that because on each service we'll have 3 iPads, one for the driver and one for each of the 2 train managers, then we'll load up all of the iPads with all of the documentation. And that way, we've got redundancy there. So if somebody does spill a cup of coffee over their iPad, then we've still got 2 more devices. Operationally, we run across 3 countries. That means that we get hammered on roaming charges all the time. So the app has to be designed in such a way that it's not polling all the time. We also run in and out of tunnels all the time. There's a great big one that goes under the channel, where it can be difficult. IT infrastructure has been a big problem for us. At the end of the day, we're a rail company, we're not an IT company, and being able to deploy the app has been a much bigger challenge than we initially thought. It's been a real learning curve for us. Our IT function is actually outsourced, so we don't have any in-house developers. We have a limited field support team who are based onshore, and everybody else is offshore. So Zazie have helped us enormously with this, but at the end of the day, it's our infrastructure and we need to learn how to manage it. So we manage our iPhones using Mobile Iron, and we need to be able to deploy the app using Mobile Iron as well so that we can control it that way. So that's what we've been struggling with. But I think we're getting there. Another thing is that because this proof of concept actually needs to run for a reasonable length of time, we've had to build a separate environment to run it on so that it doesn't block the projects that we were doing. We're in the middle of trying to upgrade to Alfresco 4 at the moment, and we needed a clear run on our usual development, pre-prod and production environments to get that out of the way. And then there's the all-important change management. The business process we have at the moment has been in place for the last 20 years, and people are used to working the way that they work. So introducing new technology is always a challenge, particularly for people who don't use technology as part of their daily task. But luckily, everybody has been really enthusiastic about it. There's a real buzz, there's a real sense of wanting to be part of this project, and actually the end users can see a real potential in using the mobile technology, not just for this project, but for other projects too. But I can witter on all day about how good I think the app is, and that doesn't really matter. What matters is what the users think. So I went down to St Pancras Station and I sat down with a few of the crew there and got some of their feedback. So we have Ian, who's a train driver. We have John, who's a traction inspector. And we have Sonia, who's a train manager. And this is some of the feedback that they gave me. As you can see, it's all really quite positive. All of them mentioned the weight of the documentation, that they'll be really pleased to get rid of having to lug all of that paper around with them. And everybody was keen on the environmental credentials as well, of getting rid of the paper. We have an environmental policy called Tread Lightly, which is, it's a real core principle of the business. So actually being able to meet green credentials in a better way is really important for us. So anyway, talking to the users, for Ian, the driver, what he's looking forward to is that when he gets an update, he wants to be able to read it on the train on the way in, or when he's on a stopover, staying over in a hotel, and he really likes the idea that with the support button, he can get help quickly. For John, the traction inspector, he no longer will have to physically visit every driver, every train manager to audit their books to make sure they have the right versions. That frees up some of his time to actually improve the quality of the service that he's giving to those people. It's also when he's providing out-of-hours support to them, everything he needs is going to be on the iPad, so he doesn't have to lug all 15 rulebooks around with him everywhere he goes when he's giving out-of-hours support. For Sonia, the train manager, she's in the customer-facing role, so for her, she thought it just looked more professional to be carrying an iPad rather than sheets of paper. And in fact, their 8 rule books are so heavy for them when they're walking up and down the train, most of the time they only take the key ones with them, and the others they put in the crew lockers at the end of each train. Now, our trains are 400 metres long, so by definition, there's always a 200-metre walk there and back if they do need to reference them. So for her, having everything she needs on the iPad, travelling around up and down the train with her, that means that she actually gets more face time with the customers, which in turn enhances the customer experience, which for us is enormously important. So, in summary, what does mobile collaboration do for Eurostar? I think Ian's comment here in the bottom corner sums it up as well as anybody can. It makes the world a little smaller. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Claire, very much. That's fantastic. I'm looking forward to meeting with train drivers. So if we want to switch the mic over, unless you want to use the Rockstar version, no. So transport is definitely a big use case for mobile because by definition, all transport actors are mobile. Here is a food industry example, and there is also, and that's where we realize how many of every workers in every industry is actually away from this desk and wanting to perform very, very important but sometimes simple tasks. And we're going to look at, I think, something around invoicing that is really the key of a business. So thank you, Victor.
Thank you, Marc. Well, in my 15 years working in IT, there is nothing more valuable to me than the time of my customers, the time of my employees, and the time of all of the people that are working with our process. It's important to me too, because trying to negotiate something with a manager that doesn't have time to herself is very difficult. It's a dangerous task. And also, the work that we do habitually on the software factories is not something physical. It's not something that have a very important impact on the real lives of the people. It's not something that moves a factory streamline. It's not something like that. With the mobile, I heard from the Queres presentations that one of the users saying that the technology is very physical, and that's true, because on the invoicing itself, that will be the case that I will show you. Is not something attractive. It's not something that I said the people telling to me, oh, we'll like to do some invoices this weekend. It's not sexy, it's not cool. It's very boring indeed. I am boring myself doing this presentation. At this point, the mobile era comes to, Steve Jobs comes to help us with the mobile interfaces, with the simplicity, with the time that you can go out of the office and you can do some work, some tasks that in other terms you must do on your office, on your little space, and very frustrating. No? The amount of mobile devices, the amount of mobile workers, according to Gartner, will be 60% by 2015. It's a lot of people. We must approach this kind of this amount of people. It's something that I think that we must approach. On the account payables solution, the account payables process is a very frustrating one, because he has a lot of problems on three sides: on the operational ones, on the environmental issues, and it have very problems in the cost. And in the operational, the main problem is on the operational side of the process are very frustrating for the users, for the managers. You spend a lot of time processing invoice, a lot of manual labor to take the package to envelopes, to print the invoice, to send to another person, to make the transport itself. All of the process is very frustrating. It's very time consuming. And on the environmental side, the environmental issues are very impacting. According to Gartner again, an average small company generates about 12,000 invoices per year. That's about 57.6 trees. That's a lot of trees. It may be not very bigger number, but when you see the very impact that the trees have on the earth, you can see the very physical impact of them. The economical issues is the most important side for the CEOs, for the COOs, and all the people that are working, and that on these times needs that we, the IT departments, must cut. Here you can see the cost of a paper invoice and the cost of an electronic invoice. There are a very big improvement on the reduction of the cost of the invoice itself. To make you in a little context, the solution we will be presenting now is the solution that in the last year Alfresco give to us the award of the best solution of the year on 2012, and this one will be the solution that I will show you. The process of the account payables process It's very noticeable for the vast majority of you. It's you buy some goods, some services, the customer, the provider sends you the invoice, for good or for bad, and you must make some recognition of the invoice, put in the data. If you have an OCR, it's an automatic process. If you don't have it, you must put by hand. You must match with your records on the ERP, and you must do some work on them. We started to work on this solution on 2007. It was a lot of time from now. On this time, the very first that we do was to make a custom Alfresco Explorer. We made customization to the Alfresco Explorer itself to help the managers, to help the users to manage the invoices on the Alfresco interface. We make points where the user can search and can make reports, and the data used by Alfresco has metadata inside the results of the search. It's something that is very vertical for this specific solution. It's information that the people working with invoices needs to see. Usually the people working with invoices don't need to see the path of the file or where is the document on the file system. They need to see what's the provider, the amount, some data that is very important for the daily work. In fact, this helps the account department, but we think that it is not enough. So we make another customization, another application to help another users on the system, on the full system. In this case, we made a full application. In this case, it's an Adobe Air application, an application made for the desktop that connects with Alfresco using web scripts and allows the IT department to search the specific invoices, to manage the invoices on a very user-friendly interface and avoiding the business rules. It's important for IT because a user usually tells, this invoice have another image. This invoice is not the same that on the system. I need to make and replace the image of the invoice, and of course the department can do it on all times. They will do on the database itself, but with Alfresco, touching the database is a very bad practice. So we made a specific interface to manage this information. So again, we helped another guys, the IT guys. It's a very important team, but not the main people important on the company. In this case, we do another application. We are on the 2012, maybe, on 2011, I can remember. This application is an application made specifically to get closer the customers to their providers. So you can have an interface where you can send your invoice to your customer. You reduce a lot the time from where you prepare the invoice and where the invoice arrives at the final user. So reducing this time on this interface, a provider can look for her invoice, look for information on the invoice, paper invoices, electronic invoices. The time is very shortened. So with the time very shortened, the customer and her provider is very happy. It's very fundamental to bring the clients closer to the providers. But is this enough? I don't think so. There are another guys in the company that are the more important guys in the company, the CEOs, the managers, directors, that takes a lot of work a day. In our case, in our customer with Estrella Galicia, a medium manager, an average manager, can have about 30, 40, 50 maybe invoices to manage per day. He must go to the desktop, start the Alfresco, he must open the application, and after that pile of papers, Queres invoice is on the middle. 2 weeks, maybe, to approve our invoice. That's not good. Every invoice could take about 1 minute. You open the Explorer, go to Alfresco dashlet, approve the invoice. It takes a lot of time. With this time, a manager can do better things. He has 30 minutes more a day. In fact, it's a real case that a manager comes and said to me, hey, Victor, this application, this iPad, this iPhone that I am using, it allows me to take a coffee, to have a coffee in the morning. In other days, I can't do that. When I was taking my coffee, when having my coffee, I can approve the invoices. I can do some work done on my office. It takes a lot more time. If 30 minutes a day is not enough for you, 1 day a month, maybe, for yourself, or for work, maybe. And, well, 15 days each year. That's you must choose one slide. You can use the 3. But it's a lot of improvement. And so, we create the mobile application. The mobile application we do from the scratch, because of that, on that time, there are no SDK from Alfresco. We do it a long time ago. So, approving an invoice now, it's simple like that. It's about 3 seconds. 3 seconds. Well, it depends on of your finger, of course, but the average finger takes 3 seconds. 1 minute, 3 seconds is really fast. 2,000% fast. 2,000% faster. And more important for some managers is faster, but you can do it everywhere. You can do it on the airport. You can do having a coffee in the morning. You can do it everywhere. The simple step is to approve an invoice, but you can do a lot more things with the application itself. You can see the invoice details. You can see additional information, and you can put additional information when you approve, and when you reject an invoices. You can see the workflow of the people that are working on the same invoice, and you can view, of course, a preview of the invoice. And that's good for managers. And if it's good for managers that approve our invoices, it's good for us. And it's good for the suppliers, it's good for the providers, it's good for all of them. Well, to summarize my presentation, don't waste the time. It's a very important gift that it was given to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Victor. All right, well, these are definitely 2 different industries, 2 different worlds, and 2 different approaches, again, in the tools that have been used. Do you have any questions for Claire or Victor? Otherwise, I have a question. You mentioned MDM, and I think that's one thing that when you're going mobile is, I mean, it's actually the first thing that people think about is about security and securing devices. So, Claire, you mentioned Mobile Iron. Is that the partner that you have elected to work with going forward?
It's the application that we used to deploy our iPhones, so we've been using it for the last 3 years. So because it's technology that we already have, that's how we want to continue, for the time being at least, to deploy the iPads as well.
Okay, and is it working for you? I mean, I guess, yes, you started with the iPhone, so is it been easy to then, I think you mentioned maybe some challenges in distributing applications. Is that something that you've managed to crack?
This is the first time that we've actually published an app of our own. We do have a commercial app which is published through the App Store, but this is the first time we've tried to publish something internally, so that's where the learning curve has been.
Have you cracked it yet?
I think we're getting there. but when I left the office on Tuesday morning, I think they'd just figured it out.
Okay, well, that's quite a fresh one. What about you, Victor and Maria? Are you using an MDM solution already? What is the strategy there?
The application is developed in-house, so it's not publicly on the App Store. It's on the in-house because it's a very custom application for Estrella Galicia.
And the platform is also iPad?
The platform is iPad and iPhone, no Android interface.
No Android yet. And so you're using the enterprise app, the Apple enterprise account to deploy the app?
Exactly. Estrella Galicia has the enterprise program with Apple that has, well, he used for a lot of more process on the company, a lot of iPhones and iPads, and he has signed a Apple program for enterprises.
Well, that's interesting. Those are two different approaches. You went with a vendor, which I think assures has a lot of services additionally to deploying hardware, and then you went more internal using the core Apple application. So that's interesting because that's, writing the app is one thing, but obviously deploying it and maintaining it, like, talking about change control and is also quite difficult. Has anyone got any questions? Yes.
This one's for you, Claire. I noted with interest you mentioned back problems that people were having carrying all these paper documents. Now, I'm aware of an airline, I can't remember which one it is, but they had a similar issue where pilots had to carry cases full of flight manuals and so on, and they replaced those with iPads. And they actually ended up saving a lot of money purely because they're not, pilots weren't going off sick with back problems. Is that your experience as well with these manuals? And have you been able to measure the savings you've been able to make through that?
We're still in the proof of concept phase, so it's a little bit early to actually say that yet, but that's a key feature that was what the users wanted, so it's important to them. It's something that we do need to address.
Yeah, I think I can put a number. I think it was 40 pounds flight bag, basically. And it's interesting, we were talking about that earlier, is that obviously transport is one of the first cases. And when you look at the iPad coming out, the first cases were American Airlines, United, etc. So I'm glad to see that the trains, the European choice for transport is coming through on this one. Do you have any other questions? So I just want to close. I think there's two commonalities that I picked up between your presentation. The environment is one of them, and it's not just talking about it, but saving quite a lot of paper. And it's good for the environment, but you mentioned an interesting figure as well of £20,000 a year just to print the printing. So I imagine that there is something very interesting there. I also hear that there is user satisfaction, either coffee or not having to go 200 meters one way or the other. That's always good. So there's also a common theme, and I think that in the end, that's something that you say there is more face time with the customer, and I think there is certainly better relationship with the providers as you are processing invoices faster, and eventually, I think, better business and more competitive, actually. I think so. That's the conclusion I'm looking at, is that mobile makes you more competitive. And hopefully you will find these examples interesting and maybe giving you some ideas, and hopefully you'll find some of the tools that we provide also interesting to do that. So thank you again very much, Claire and Victoria and Maria, for presenting your applications. Thank you.